You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Welcome back to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another amazing show lined up for y'all today. Today, we have a special guest. His name is Johan Depraetere. He has an easy website. It's just like his name, Johan Depraetere. And I'm going to put that in the show notes. So johandepraetere.com is the website. It'll be in the show notes for spelling. But first and foremost, he has an amazing story. He is the co-founder of Energy Equation Partners, and also he is someone that you need to know. His story has crossed paths with some of the world's biggest companies. He's traveled and visited over nearly 100 countries, and he has a book that you need to check out. Is Pick Your Gummy Bear. He's going to tell us all about his great insights and wisdom that he has gained over the years, because he has a bio that I'll probably read for a whole 25 minutes. So I just want to cut to the chase and say, first of all, Johan, thank you for being on today. How are you doing?
Shamaya, thank you for having me, and I'm doing great. Thank you. Very, very happy to be here with you today.
Yes, sir. Tell us a little bit about your professional background before we dive into your book.
Yes, so I've originated from Belgium, but left Belgium about 32 years ago, and had an urge to really see the world. And I was lucky enough to do that through a business career, which really took me around the globe. And I didn't really have a linear career path. I started as a consultant, but then, went to business school, did banking, but didn't really, like that too much. Then ended up in New York during the first .com boom, started a company, and like many didn't work out, and then spent some time in Spain, and then ended up moving to South Korea, where I worked for Samsung for about 9 years, where I also met my wife. So my professional career kind of had an overlap with my personal life. And then for the last 14 years, I've been in London, where I've been working on energy. For 9 years, I actually was the CFO of a Pan-African energy company. So I spent lots of time in Africa. And now we're here. I took a step back. I'm still involved with one leg in business. And then the other leg is the book that kind of appeared by accident.
When you think about life decisions, a lot of times when we listen to podcast shows and we watch our favorite TV show or movie that inspires us, or read our favorite book, we always learn about that favorite character that has faced adversity. And a lot of times that character or part of the story is getting outside that comfort zone. That's a hot buzz phrase that we hear, I'll probably say, since the pandemic, when everybody started hopping on podcast shows and starting their own shows. But the truth is, we all face that inner critic, and also that comfort zone that either makes us or it breaks us. For you and your own personal story, your professionalism career, how did you deal with your inner critic and expand from your own comfort zone?
That's a kind of a big question, so I'll try to unpack it piece by piece. I think I've always felt the urge to kind of become the best version of myself, professionally, but also personally. And that meant, kind of pushing myself and getting outside of my comfort zone. And I think, as you said, there's the inner critic, and if you push yourself too far, we will fall. It will hurt. Now the question is, what do you do with that? Do you go and say, listen, I will cry, and yes, it is painful many times, but do you see it as a part of learning and growth, or do you see yourself more as a victim? And I've early on in my life, actually, through a sports failure, learned the lesson of failing very early on. So when I was about 17, I was, soccer was a big thing for me, and I played soccer every day, and I had a chance to kind of go to a first division team in Belgium. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and about 6 months in, I had to kind of make a choice. Do I stick with something that I used to love but no longer? And that moment, I realized it was a failure. And the question is, do I take the exit route, or do I continue to struggle and not really enjoy myself? And also, as you said, it's not just the inner critic, but also what other people will think when you fail. And I made the brave decision to walk away and say, listen, unfortunately, it didn't work out. Let's move on and throw in the towel. At the same time, I saw it as a fantastic learning, because I kind of, at that moment, realized that when you kind of test your boundaries and you get out of your comfort zone, try to do it in a smart way. Don't go for the jump that you will know will be too far, too much. And so from an early age, I faced failure, which it was, as a 16, 17-year-old, it's almost like the end of the world. But at the end of the day, when you then step back and say, yes, it was hard, but it happened for a reason, because I was, too ambitious. I was not good enough for that type of role. So I learned from that and then took that with me. And always, both on a personal side and a professional side, kind of testing my limits. And at the same time, I learned not to silence or let my inner critic drive me, but befriend my inner critic. To say, listen, the inner critic is always there, and I can test the inner critic. And so one way, and again, I talk about that in the book, is for me, traveling has been a fantastic way to kind of educate my inner critic and take my inner critic to places where they were kind of a bit confused. Because if I start backpacking and I go to a place, and I did that both in Spain, but then also in South America, I lost my identity. I didn't have a job. I was just living day by day. I didn't plan much. And so the inner critic didn't really have a ground to stand on. And so from that moment, you kind of have, a different relationship with your inner critic, because you say, listen, I'm in charge here. I will kind of explore this world as a backpacker, which is very foreign to me, but I'm on new territory. And so that, from an early age on, again, has helped me to kind of navigate new terrain and not let my inner critic or my fears or my anxieties or even what other people might think hold me back. So that's I would say, it was a very big question, but I think, the inner critic is there. It's never going to go away. You just have to, as I said, you have to befriend it.
I appreciate you giving that answer, because it sets up my next question is, when you look at the companies that you cross paths with, these are major companies, household name companies. Was there any point in your journey where you felt like, man, am I good enough to do this? Because a lot of people dream about crossing paths with some of these companies that you've been able to work with. What was that like for you as far as professionally? Were you always like, man, this is what I'm going to do because I expect myself to do it? Or did you have any doubts in the beginning?
I think that the doubts, are always there, because it's anytime you go into a new job, a new company, it's you can kind of visualize, and you have expectations of what it's like, and actually, again, a very, very important lesson early on in my life. I actually, my first job was with Procter Gamble, a big American company in the US, but I kind of didn't feel 100% comfortable with the company, but it was the only job, and so I decided to go for it. It was in the finance department in Brussels, and early on, I had to write a memo, because that's how the famous P&G has to, that's the name, Procter Gamble, known as P&G, has this policy of the 2-page memo, where anything you have to analyze, you just write a document. and I had to write my first document. And unfortunately, my boss at the time was on leave, and so I had somebody else who was looking after me. And I went to him, and this is, I was just starting. This was 4 weeks into my new job, and I got my memo back from him, and I called it the bleeding memo. There was almost no white space left on that page. And then, to be honest, I was shocked, and it was cold, it was dark, it was in December in Brussels in an old office. And at that time, again, almost going back to my soccer example, I felt that, the world had come to an end, that saying, what am I doing here? This is not for me. Again, you need time to let it sink in and say, listen, this is not personal. This is, he's trying to help me here, and the other person has this type of management, and we all have our types of management. Some people are very direct, some people are more soft and more coaching, and I clearly had a very direct boss in front of me. At the same time, for me, it kind of made me realize, do I really want to stay with this company? Because I had some doubts, so I took it as another data point. Yes, I was suffering, and it was painful, because clearly if somebody gives you that, it's not a sign that you aced something. It's like, no, you gotta go back. Now, in parallel, as I had started another recruiting process with another company, just as it happened, and a few weeks later I got another job offer from McKinsey, the consulting company. And it's almost like that moment when I was facing that bleeding memo moment made me realize maybe it is time to leave. And it's interesting because Procter Gamble is known as a very structured company. It's almost like you see your career for the next 5-10 years ahead of you. I also realized in that moment that is not me. I like very unstructured, open, unknown environments. So to your question is, one of the key things in making the choices and talking about the book is also trying to find out what really drives you. What are your superpowers? What do you like? What don't you like? Where do you get your energy from? And for me, working in unstructured environments is extremely powerful. And so that moment, again, yes, it was painful, but I saw it as a almost like a mirror of what is Johan all about, and what does he really like, and what gives him the energy to really move on. And so it's an iterative process, and so every job you kind of have to think about, it's an internal journey as well as an external journey. And I've been able, I think, to kind of navigate those two journeys in parallel, so that whatever challenge in a new job was thrown at me, I almost felt like I was ready for that. And if it didn't work out, and that goes back to my football or my soccer experience, I was ready to walk away, because I didn't have to prove anything. There was somebody once said, you either love it, you change it if you don't love it, or you leave it. I mean, it's very simple 3 words, but if you apply that, especially to professional life, it becomes very powerful. And that's a rule that I've kind of lived by throughout my career, and has taken me to amazing places.
I like that part, because I agree. If you love something, challenges only forces you to pivot and adapt to it. It never makes you back down and say, I quit. I don't think anyone on this planet can say they don't have those thoughts when they're frustrated. But when you're secure in your way, you just double down, you dig deeper. And if you really love what you're doing, there's no force in this world that can stop your belief in yourself and your raw God-given talent, or whatever faith you believe in. For me personally, it is the higher up. He gives you opportunity to make an impact in this world. And the funny part is, you don't know all the answers. So you just got to keep going every single day. And even if you have some setbacks, you can find a way to fight through.
Absolutely. Yeah. And ask the question. So yes.
Oh, go ahead.
So yes. No. I fully agree with what you just said. Yeah.
When you think about heroes, earlier I was talking about how we watch our favorite movies or we our favorite books. There's always a hero story. Is there a hero in your life that kept you grounded or at least inspired you to, man, okay, because what she said or what he said, you know what, I can apply myself. I can do this. I'm gonna make this happen. Was there a hero in your life?
Yes, and I again, there's a chapter in my book about my hero, who is actually my older brother, Peter. He's 4 years older. We grew up together. He passed away about 6 years ago. Too early for a young man. But he kind of had a fully lived life. And so from that perspective, he made me always think, what can I do to live a life? He didn't travel like I did, but he did go all the way in 100%. And unfortunately, in a way, the chapter that I wrote, I was never able to tell him how important he has been and continues to be for me in my life. And that's another lesson. There's probably conversations that we think we should have or we want to have, but somehow we don't. And, it's up to us to have those conversations, now or tomorrow, and not wait until it's too late. But he was there, and having a role model or a lighthouse for me, when I look back, was extremely important, because he kind of carved a path for me at a young age that I was able to follow in his footsteps. He showed me what was possible. And having somebody who not only shows that to you, but also indirectly gives you the belief that you can actually do it yourself, I think is extremely important. Especially even today for the younger generations who live in a much more complex world than I grew up in. So to have a bit of direction, a lighthouse, I think is extremely important. And so he showed me what to study. He introduced me to soccer, something that became part of my life. Even study-wise, he got his MBA before me in the US. So again, I followed in his footsteps. And also on the spiritual side, he was a trendsetter, and he went on a 10-day silent meditation, which is kind of Buddhist inspired. It's non-religious, but he did that, and again I followed him in that, and did a few of those now. The first one was back in 2000, the late 2008, 2009, and I ended up going to Japan for 10 days on my first 10-day silent meditation, and just like you said, it's that spiritual journey, that inner journey. Again, for me, he was an anchor point, and so when you add it all up, it's just, and it's interesting because we often take it for granted. We don't necessarily recognize that these people are there, and as I said, in my case, I wrote it, unfortunately, after he passed away, but I have a little shrine in my office, if I can call it that, where also my parents are, and there's a few objects there, and there's a photo. And when I work from home every morning, I would just, for half a minute or a minute, I just will stand in front of that little shrine and remember my brother, my parents, because it's a different relationship. So even today, with him not being here physically, he continues to guide me. So a very important part of my life and continues to be so.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest today, Johan Depraetere. Go to his website, johandepraetere.com. I appreciate what you said about the anchor point because, man, that's very relatable because when you have a hero in your life, whether it's your parents, your best friend, whatever it is, it's like no matter storms that come, those memories will always hold you down. They'll always be that bright light when everything around you seems a little dark. And it will not do your life for you, but it will point you in the right direction to take the next step. And I think that's so important what you said about the anchor point, because everyone has an anchor point in life. If you don't have one, you better find one, because without that anchor point, you will be all over the map and you will keep making excuses and you keep going downhill and spiral downhill. But with that anchor point, it humbles you and motivates you at the same time. But at the end of the day, you still have to take action and apply yourself. So for our listeners, our viewers, let's get more into your cover of your book, because your book, your Gummy Bear. Tell us about how you designed that cover, because I feel you put some much thought into that.
Yeah. So maybe I'll before I talk about the cover. So the book is really about those choices and how can you be more conscious about the choices that really shape your life. And I call them gummy bear moments. And I believe, I use the metaphor of gummy bears because I think we all have a bag of gummy bears, in our pocket. We just sometimes forget that the gummy bears are there. And I distinguish between the green gummy bears, and the cover has a big green gummy bear on there, which are the big choices. What do you study? What kind of career do you want? Where do you live? Who do you share your life with? Your spirituality, religion, all those big choices and commitments you make, which are very important. At the same time, I've come to realize that they're also what I call the yellow gummy bears, the more subtle choices, the whispers that, you will hear, but maybe ignore, that, maybe you say, let's try this, let's open this door and experiment or try something. And before you know it, there's another door. And before you know it, you're in a completely different place because, you were able to listen and I will pick it up and give it a go. And so I wanted to, really, I work with, I'm kind of a self-published author, but I used an agency to help me with the heavy lifting. And together we designed this very visual, bright cover of saying, listen, pick your gummy bear, because we can all pick our gummy bears. We can always, make the big choices. And it's not just, in your personal life, in your professional life, in your spiritual life, or whatever is important for me, like traveling, but also how do you create space for other people as a mentor? Because we talk about the anchor point, but sometimes we forget how important it is for your friends, for your children, for your siblings, for whoever your team members. Give them the space so they can actually eat their own gummy bears, which I think is really what leadership is about. It's about, yes, you need to lead your own life, but then how do you create the space for other people to eat gummy bears? So it's a really broad application, and I think some of the best bosses I've had were always encouraging me to go that extra step and say, let's double down. You can do it. And I will be forever grateful to them, because they gave me, they lifted me up and showed me that, and maybe believe in myself. So I think that's the cover. Yes, I actually have it. You can see it here for that book. I don't know if you see it, but yes, it's maybe not. There we go. It's I think it gives the also I think it captures the energy that is in the book, because I believe we as humans are energy, and this book is a different form of energy, but it came from my energy, and it will go wherever it will go, including the cover. So yes, that's the story of the cover.
Well, once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online today. And we're talking to our special guest today, Johan Depraetere. Go to his website, johandepraetere.com. Make sure you get a copy of his book. It will definitely be in the show notes. Last question about Pick Your Gummy Bear before we completely close. And that is, if you had to pick a lesson that you explore in the book that you hope readers will really appreciate, what do you hope that lesson is that they appreciate?
I think to think about one thing that has been on your mind for a long time, but somehow you're not able to take action, I would just say, do it. And say, why not? You know? Sometimes we say, why you want to do that? I would leave the listeners with those two words and say, why not? And just go for it. That's really what the book is about.
That's good stuff, man. Once again, been talking to our good guy, good friend of the show, Johan. Like always, man, to you, I want to say thank you for your time.